Hey everyone, welcome to Respawn Aim Fire, the official podcast of Christmas. We are the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast where you will have yourself a merry little Christmas and you'll be home for it too because coronavirus says you have to stay at home. So, welcome everyone. This is episode 186 of our jolly little gaming podcast here. I improvised so much and now I've lost my place in the script, Holden. Where am I? What do I do? Oh, hi. I'm Chad Michael Innes.
I was like, how do I say we're at the very beginning still?
We've got with us Holden, jolly old St. Nicholas, lean your beard this way and tickle me with a mustache ride DePardo.
I would say only half of those descriptors work for me.
Every other word. And we've also got the dreamiest fan base in the entire Globo watching us and joining us from all over the Globo right now. You don't know what Globo is. It's Spanish for balloon. But it kind of sounds like globe, which is like the Earth. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, you can put us in your ears with your favorite podcast service, or you can put us in your eyeballs with searching for Respawn Aim Fire on YouTube. That's right, we've gone into the third dimension with 2D video, and if you want to go into the fourth dimension by breaking the space-time continuum, you can do that by going into a phone booth in jolly old London town, a.k.a. twitch.tv/affableidiots every Sunday night at 8 p.m., 8:30 Eastern, one day, Holden. One day we should change this note template. Like we're doing right now. How do I work this technology? I did it. Hey, everybody. There are a few people. Oh, there are people watching us right now. We've got Pork Chop saying, yo, please come back. Dads, please don't leave again. We've also got, sup, you cootie kings. Okay, important poll out right now. Before we get to the rest of the episode, if you are watching this live, you can go to Affable Idiots Twitter. This is twitter.com/affableidiots. And there's a poll. Everyone else who's not watching live, forget about it. You're too late. You were never our friends to begin with.
Whoa.
If I say
I think
lint
you're still
liquor,
our friends, random person.
If I just say the two words lint liquor, do you know exactly what ad I am referencing? That's the important poll. Go to Affable Idiots, tell us yes or no, I'm a baby or old. Those are your two choices. Okay.
There's
Y'all,
no
it's
shame
gonna
in
be a
saying no,
special
I'm a baby
episode.
or old. That's what I said because I didn't know about it.
That's true.
And then Chad sent me the ad, and it's a good ad. It's a good ad. I won't tell you what ad it is because then you would know and would answer the poll with it would skew the results of the poll, and we can't do that.
You know what I just realized? Defense. D-E, de, or day, is Spanish for of. Mm-hmm. So defense of fence, offense. The best defense is a good offense. That's what I just realized.
And I just realized that Chad did some serious drugs for this podcast because this
nope.
has been the wackiest intro I think we've ever had.
I won't do drugs. A, won't have an attitude. Or I will respect myself. E, I will educate me. That is the DARE promise, everyone. I don't know if you ever took DARE in elementary school, but that's what I learned. It's going to be so
I was
special
one of the kids
today.
that mocked it.
It's going to be special. We're going to talk about
really, don't do drugs,
Xbox
everyone.
One
Don't do drugs.
reviews. We're going to talk about Starfield. We have an update on Starfield. Remember that game? From Elder Scrolls developers, Bethesda. And we have Pikmin.
Yeah, it's Pikmin. Yeah, I wrote Pikmin.
At first I was like,
it's
it is
Pikmin.
Pikmin, isn't it? What is this? Have I been
It's
saying
Pikmin,
it Pikmon?
yeah.
Is it? But no, it is Pikmin.
Pikmon.
We have some Pikmin news.
It doesn't matter though because it's done.
It doesn't matter. But fucking yeah. So let's start our episode. Before we get to any of that, let's talk about Xbox. Last week we did a very special PlayStation retrospective event where we just looked back at the PlayStation 4, its life cycle from reveal to current day. We're going to do the same thing real quick today with the Xbox One. Obviously, it's going to be much shorter because it has not accomplished as many things. That is me just kind of getting in here. And how do I remember things from 20 years ago? What are you talking about? I'm 30. I was 10. That's a normal amount of time to remember things. So let's talk about Xbox. Starting with the Xbox One reveal event. Let's get back into that mindset. It's 2013. We're just learning about these new consoles. We're hyped as fuck because we knew that Xbox 360 launched with Perfect Dark Zero, and they had to have another hit this time as well. Xbox showed off the new console at an event that was like laughably dedicated to basically everything but video games. It was TV. There was a supercut of every time they say sports that you can find on YouTube. It's just sports. TV. And it killed the momentum for this thing. Absolutely killed it.
And here's the thing is, there wasn't even really momentum because it hadn't started yet. Like, this was the first.
Well, there was still buzz going into it. It was like, oh my goodness, Xbox is going to have a new console soon. I wonder what it's going to be. I wonder what it's going to do. And everyone's like, oh. In fact, it is called Xbox One because it was an all-in-one entertainment device. They wanted it to be the center of your living room. In fact, you can there are still 2 HDMI ports on it so that you can plug your cable box and run it through your Xbox. That's how crazy involved they want it.
Not with the Series X.
No, not with Series X. So that's how it launched. They almost didn't talk about games at all that entire event. They said, oh yeah, we'll talk about games later and at E3. They showed off all sorts of things like, I'm not even sure all of these ended up coming out either. But
no, not all of them did.
A bunch of things were shown off, including like the ability to snap for snap mode for multitasking on there. I don't know if that ever came to it. ESPN, Skype, the Xbox TV guide, which I'm sure gets a ton of use.
It was also missing tons of features when they came out.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't record something from your DVR from there. Like, there were things that were missing that just didn't work.
I think it's let's go ahead and say this up front. This will be an objective look back at Xbox One.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Phil Spencer.
We should say I wouldn't say I'm a PlayStation fanboy. I think you're more of a PlayStation fanboy, but
100%.
neither of us are Xbox people. We should just say that like right off the bat.
Let's just say I would be more of an Xbox fan if they gave me reason to be an Xbox fan this generation. I was an Xbox boy for the original Xbox. Faux show. So Phil Spencer also revealed Forza Motorsport 5. He announced Quantum Break. It's talk about TV. Halo is getting a TV show with Steven Spielberg. Still hasn't happened yet.
It's not even a Steven Spielberg one they're working on anymore.
Right,
that's just a different thing.
Anymore. It's a different show for Showtime. And then they close the show with Call of Duty Ghost.
Before we move on, I just have to point out what Brent has mentioned here about that HDMI port, the HDMI in for the TV. He says, I used to put my PS4 or other console into the port and play PS4 games while on Xbox Party Chat. That HDMI in was awesome. That's hilarious.
Kind of awesome. That's awesome.
A rebel. That's a rebel move right there.
With a cause. It's because I hate him. Fire Toby. Goodbye, Toby. Okay, let's move on. This is another little tidbit. They also revealed that like there was going to be DRM. It had to be an always-on console. It would check to make sure it was connected to the internet every so often. Otherwise, it would stop functioning.
Yeah, none of that was in the introductory event, though. It was all in interviews after the event. They didn't even talk about that. There's no mention of it at all.
So yeah, that came with Phil Harrison, and so there was the DRM information about like being able to share digital games that came in E3 later, and so then at E3 we get to a couple of like actually jaw-dropping moments. The first being the fact that Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, started off the show. This is a game franchise that had never been on Xbox before. And in fact, famously, like Metal Gear Solid 4 still isn't, even though the rest eventually came to it. But like, that was a huge get to see that he revealed it on a Microsoft console. So then Don Matrick, good old Don Matrick, what a mensch, says, he gets on stage and he says, as we've been promising, it's all about the games. Yeah, that's exactly what they promised.
TV, sports. It's in the game.
There were some new IPs shown off. Like we had Rise, Son of Rome. Did you ever play that game?
No, I didn't. I
It's
played
on
like a
Game
little
Pass.
bit of it, but I wouldn't say I played it.
Yeah, it's
I
on
never
Game
played
Pass.
from
You
beginning to
shouldn't
end or
play
anything.
it. I accidentally played it because I thought it was there was a game with a similar name that had integration with Philips Hue lights, and it could synchronize with them. And I was like, oh, I want to play that because I got all my Philips Hue lights. And then I played Rise: Son of Rome instead, and it was like, oh, this is not good. They introduced Killer Instinct, Sunset Overdrive, Forza Motorsport. And then there were a big old list of games coming in here. So Minecraft was coming to Xbox One. We saw Quantum Break, that game with Iceman, Bobby Drake in it. Also had the TV show in it with Zavala. D4, whatever the fuck that was. Project Spark. Yeah. Remember Project Spark? And they had Conker in that thing. They're like, we don't know what the fuck to do with the squirrel we bought, so let's put it in Project Spark.
The demo looked really cool. But then looking into everything for this, they stopped selling that game.
Yeah.
Which means probably didn't do that well.
No, this was like it
Which
was like
is a
a
shame,
create
'cause
your
it
own
didn't look
world
that
kind
bad.
of thing.
Yeah.
Crimson Dragon was a Kinect game. Dead Rising 3 was shown off. First trailer for The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. Everyone was super pumped on that. We saw
That's one of the
Battlefield
best
4.
next-gen trailers. Of the time, that next-gen, that was one of the best trailers, hands down. Blew my mind.
And then this was big news. Phil Spencer got on stage and said they had acquired 5 new studios, including Black Tusk Studios. They showed off Halo 5, and they announced the price, $4.99, coming in November of 2013. And the price increase was because they put all their eggs in the Kinect basket. And they said, not only are we supporting the Kinect, but here's a new giant beefy version of it to put on your home console center. And everyone has to buy an Xbox with it, and that's why it's more expensive now. And then all the developers hated it, and then everyone else also hated it. And then they said, just kidding, we're not supporting it anymore. And they took it out of the box. And now nothing ever supports Kinect, not even backwards compatibility stuff.
They had balls at least to put it in there, but it just did not pan out. And again, it's worth mentioning, in that E3 event, they did not once mention the always on or the DRM. All that was in interviews outside of there. But the only time at E3 all that stuff was mentioned was at Sony's E3 press conference, where they just shat all over Microsoft for doing that move. And it was just a really, really bad look. That E3 is the same event where they had Don Matrick saying, if you don't have an internet connection, we have a product for you. It's called Xbox 360.
Yeah.
it was really, really bad. And it just set them up for not greatness.
Yep. Their final announcement, though, this was the big bet, was Titanfall. They showed off Titanfall, which was like, anyone who was getting an Xbox, that was when it was like, are you getting an Xbox or are you going to get a PS4? And anyone who chose Xbox were like, dude, obviously Xbox. Have you seen Titanfall? I'm going to play Titanfall. That's going to be dope. That's going to be so much better than insert knack here.
To be fair, they were right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Titanfall did look dope, but I believe, didn't it get delayed? I think Titanfall got delayed to March or something like that.
Yeah, it was March. Yeah, it came out in March. It wasn't supposed to be a launch title. They said at the E3 event it's coming in spring.
Gotcha.
I think so. It came
out. It
out.
was always a promised later kind of thing.
Was it the 360 one that got delayed though? That I didn't look into. I think there was a 360 version of it that was really watered down.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Let's take a look back. That's how it was announced. Let's take a look back at some of the games and services that came to Xbox over the years. And I'm just going to set expectations ahead of time. Most of these games are not good. If you look at the Metacritic of them and reviews, they are not good. They are objectively not good games.
Going through and putting this list together, there's way more games than I thought, but I'm like, I don't remember that game. Oh yeah, I remember that one, but that one wasn't great, and that was the theme. It's just embarrassing.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll go ahead.
Coming in launch year 2013, we had Crimson Dragon, which was a Kinect title, Dead Rising 3, Forza Motorsport 5, Killer Instinct, that fighting game, and Rise: Son of Rome. 2014, we got our first remaster with Fable Anniversary. Minecraft came out on it, but it came actually to PS4 2 days earlier. This is before they owned Mojang. Forza Horizon 2, Project Spark, again, Conker, no longer sold. Sunset Overdrive was like a light in the dark. That was the first game that everyone was like, wow, this is actually a good game on Xbox. It's amazing. And then the Halo Master Chief Collection, which was just kind of plagued for over a year with matchmaking troubles and the game not running well and all of that kind of fun stuff. 2015, Ori and the Blind Forest came out. Now, this is a game that I demand Holden. This is a mandatory barf. I can't make it. This won't be your one game you have to play this year, just because.
You're running out of time on that, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I never played Metro Exodus. I just looked up 2 hours of gameplay footage and pretended I played it. Just kidding. What if I did that though? No, you should. I think you would love Ori and Will of the Wisps for sure. But I think you would also really like Blind Forest, and you don't have to play one to understand the other. 2015 also brought us Rare Replay, which was another it was 32 games, something like that from Rare's history that a lot of people loved. Gears of War, the original Ultimate Edition released. Forza Motorsport 6, Halo 5 Guardians. And then, hold on, I was trying to think of another time in history when this has happened in the gaming world. Rise of the Tomb Raider was released as a year-long exclusive with Xbox. And I remember this being a big deal, and there was a lot of stink to it because, one, the new reboot reviewed really well. It was cross-platform. Everything had it. You could play it on whatever you wanted to play it on. And then it came out and they said Rise of the Tomb Raider, the sequel to this big hit franchise, was going to be exclusive to Xbox for a year. And I, for the life of me, could not think of another game that was announced as a timed exclusive before Rise of the Tomb Raider. Or at least it wasn't very common practice, as it is today. Like, we have a story coming up later about Godfall. It's a timed exclusive, but...
Yeah, the only instance where I can think of that is... And it doesn't really count. Is like when 360 came out a year before PS3, so just there was kind of like a natural, quote unquote, timed exclusive, but not like this was, where it was like a legitimate business decision. Yeah, I can't think of any.
And there were, of course, games that came out that then eventually got ported to other systems. But yeah, this is the first one that I think it was like an actual partnership that ruffled a lot of people's feathers at the time, and people were pissed off about it. And then nowadays it's common practice.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is that whenever it finally came out on the PS4 a year later, it was a much better version of it. And it also included a bunch of free content. The VR stuff as well was exclusive to PlayStation.
And then PS4 Pro came out. It was just kind of timed to it was timed to PS4 Pro.
Then we had 2016 Quantum Break came out and did not do what they wanted it to do from Remedy. Good old Bobby Drake Iceman coming in there. His TV show did not go over well. Recore. Oh, Holden. They made such a big deal about this game from the Mega Man creator, and he was like, this new thing called Recore, it's going to be amazing, and this thing flopped.
And the producer of Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
Which is what got me hyped about it.
This thing flopped like a fucking bass gasping for air on the bed of a boat just after being caught on a brisk Saturday morning. Gears of War 4 came out. Again, kind of lukewarm reviews. Dead Rising 4 came and went. But we also got a reveal in 2016. They revealed the most powerful console in the world, the Xbox One, the Xbox One X. And at the same time, they said, this console's coming next year, but right now, kinda, you can pre-order an Xbox One S, which is a slimmed down, a little bit better version of our Xbox One, coming in August.
I think it was like, what, Project Scorpio, was it?
Scorpio was the code name for, Xbox One X. Yeah. And the launch day editions were, you could get a Scorpio one that actually has Scorpio written on it and on the controller. So that was a fun little move there, Xbox One S being released. Funnily enough, you could get it in a couple different SKUs, but the 2 terabyte came out first, and then you could, like 3 weeks later, get the 1 terabyte or the 500 gigabyte model.
And was there ever a 2 terabyte One X? I don't know if there was.
Probably like a special edition. Because I know there have been 2 terabyte PlayStation 4s, but it was only like the special edition ones. Like the 500 million PlayStation was a 2 terabyte. And I don't know. 2017. Halo Wars 2. Phantom Dust. Didn't that get canceled?
Yeah, but it's still listed.
Oh my gosh. Forza Motorsport 7. Super Lucky's Tale. So a bunch of AAA great games coming out that year. But what has literally been the biggest contribution to gaming in the last 10 years, I think, Xbox Game Pass, released on
absolutely.
June 1st. It was huge. I remember when it came out, we were doing the podcast at that point. And I was like, this is this is the biggest thing that's been announced. This is amazing. And first party titles coming on day one to Game Pass. That's incredible. That's unheard of. Now we see why, because they're all just fine games.
The very definition of fine.
Yes. And then finally later that year, November 7th, Xbox One X releases as its interstitial update. 3 years left. We've got 2018, saw Sea of Thieves from Rare, State of Decay 2. There was a big old stink about PUBG being exclusive to Xbox on console, which was a big get for them because it was huge at the time, but pretty quickly lost steam and then eventually came to other consoles. And then Forza Horizon 4 Seasons. Not to be confused with Forza Horizon 4 Seasons Hotel or Forza Horizon 4 Seasons Landscaping Place.
That is straight out of an episode of Veep.
True story. On election night, I started watching Veep again, and I'm on season 2 now, and it is my 4th time through this thing, and it's still just as fucking laugh out loud funny as it is, especially given Donald Trump's campaign. Anyway, and then we have 2019, last year, Crackdown 3 came out. Big old to-do about this game. Lots of turbulent development. Came out, and I think it got 5s and 6s from places. This is a light in the dark, Holden. Gears 5. Criminally underplayed game. Came out last year. Also is the biggest showcase title for the Xbox Series X right now because they have nothing else. Yeah. But it's a great excuse and a great opportunity for people to actually finally play this game. It is gorgeous. Beautiful environments. Excellent HDR. Really fun multiplayer. I think a lot of people slept on this game, and I hope they get to play it. And then, of course, Ori and Will of the Wisps. One of the best platformers of the generation, for sure. Right up there with Hollow Knight and Guacamelee. Bleeding Edge came out, and then finally, on June 9th, we took another step forward with Game Pass, including Game Pass for PC that went into open beta, and the announcement of Game Pass Ultimate, which bundles Xbox Live Gold with it as well for $15 a month. 2020, no games. However, again, another huge contribution to the gaming landscape is xCloud. Project xCloud went into beta and then launched and is now part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Did that in September on the 15th. And Game Pass has officially hit 15 million subscribers. So, by the end of the generation, Xbox is no longer, obviously, they're losing the sales war to Sony. So they are no longer giving units of consoles sold. But estimates are somewhere in the range of 50 million. So Holden, from the game's perspective, not a lot going on. However, Game Pass, xCloud, those are huge contributions.
Yeah. So the only good games they had in the whole generation were carryovers from prior generations. Halo, but even then, Halo 5 Guardians was not necessarily a pinnacle of Halo, unlike a lot of the PlayStation exclusives, where basically every game that was in a franchise was considered the pinnacle of that franchise.
Right.
And then Gears, besides Gears 5, kind of lukewarm there. Forza Motorsport, okay, yeah, those games are all considered really good, but it's a racing game. It kind of speaks to people who like racing games and not much outside of that. So, yeah, it was a huge disappointment. And one thing I want to add on to this, too, Don Mattrick was the head of Xbox starting off this generation. Phil Spencer took over. What was Phil Spencer's role at Xbox right before taking over? He was the head of Xbox Game Studios. He was head of the part that they're still to this day not doing as well in. And I don't know, I kind of had this thought of you'd think that when you're the head of Xbox Game Studios, then you take over as head of Xbox, you would recognize that that's one of the console's weaknesses, and that you would do a lot to make sure that by the next generation you can be ready for that. And we're still in a position where it's no, wait, we bought all these companies, just wait.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of weird. I wonder how much behind the scenes they really had to like readjust for Series X and on instead of the future of Xbox.
I think we've mentioned this on the podcast before where like the last half of this generation has been just like Phil Spencer cleaning up Don Matrick's mess so that he can prep for this generation.
Yeah.
Not even, they don't, well, no, they are calling it a generation now. So I think we are just now going to start seeing announcements about acquiring all these studios, and they're making games, and what we're seeing will be finally Phil Spencer's vision come to light.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It's taken a little longer than anyone had hoped for that to kind of come to fruition, but I have confidence. I know it sounds like I don't often, but I have confidence that Phil Spencer is going to turn this thing into like a really amazing console and ecosystem outside of just the tech that runs it, but also a great place to play some really amazing games. We're not there yet.
And they have his back, too. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, would not have let Phil Spencer spend $7.5 billion on Bethesda unless they were confident in where they were going to be in the next several years. So they have confidence there. And I had a big transition myself because if people go back and listen to the earlier episodes, probably one of my worst takes ever is Microsoft is doomed. Which did not turn out to be the case.
I think at any given time, we've all been through Nintendo is doomed, Xbox is doomed, Sony is doomed. There were so many conversations coming out of the Wii U. They're like, what if just like Sony or Xbox buys Nintendo, and then those games are on their consoles. So what if they just moved to mobile?
Those.
And like these were all serious things that were getting discussed, and we had that conversation about Xbox as well. I was like, so I think we've all been there at one point or another.
Oh, I was adamant about it, though. I was so adamant. I remember one of the things I said was the first console to be out of the race is going to be Microsoft, or it was going to be Xbox. I'm glad I was wrong. I'm very glad I was wrong.
Yeah. So that's what the Xbox One kind of has set itself up with over the generation. We have a new generation starting just this Tuesday, in 2 days. By the time people are listening to this, I will literally have this in my home. Our episode goes live at 9 a.m. I have my pickup time scheduled at Best Buy for 8 a.m. So, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. I probably won't play it for a few days. And then once I boot it on, I don't know what I'm going to play on it. Maybe I'll just download Ori and the Will of the Wisp again and play it for 3 minutes and go, oh. Who knows? But we're going to talk a lot more about Series X and more in just a moment. First, Holden, let's talk a little bit about playtime. I see you've got a list of things. I do not want to talk about those things yet because mine is short, so I'm going to talk about it first.
Yeah.
I played Destiny 2 this week. Surprise fucking surprise. I promise there will be more for me to talk about next week as the consoles come in and I play literally everything. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have a week off of work. I know I have a week off of work from Thursday through the following Wednesday. And I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be streaming on our channel, twitch.tv/affableidiots, everything I'm playing on PS5. So if you're curious about Miles Morales or Godfall or Demon's Souls, tune in. Watch me play through those same things. Maybe some of them I'll be playing with friends. Maybe some of them I'll be playing by myself. Maybe I'll be naked playing them. Who knows?
You won't be, because then you won't be on Twitch.
Well, maybe I'll have a beanbag over my beanbag. Then, so anyway, Destiny 2.
You still have your nipples showing. You still have your nipples showing.
Maybe I'll have pasties over my nipsies. Destiny 2, Holden, it is coming to an end. Monday, tomorrow, is the last day that many planets in Destiny 2 will be available, and with them, a ton of activities are going away. The season of Arrivals is ending, and Beyond Light, and the season of Europa is around the corner. It's very exciting. We finished all the campaigns, my fire team and I, Dallas and Matt. Our fire team call is and so we played through one of the dungeons that's going away. If you're unfamiliar with dungeons in Destiny, they're basically raids, but shorter and made for 3 people instead of 6, so a little bit more accessible. But they still have like some really obtuse mechanics. They still have the difficulty level of a raid. And that was one thing that we wanted to do. This dungeon was going away as with a bunch of other dungeons as well. And we're like, we've never done one before. Let's do it. And I look up ahead of time, Prophecy Dungeon, how long does it take to complete? And people are like, Yeah, I mean, it's recommended light level this, but, we were a few under, and it took us, we didn't go in even knowing what to do, and we took maybe about an hour and a half, and we were like, okay, we're overpowered right now. We've got some good weapons. We know what we're doing. We looked up strategies ahead of time. We know what we're doing.
And you got Dallas.
And we got Dallas. We, actually, in that game, they have me. That's why I like that game so much, because I'm finally the useful one. Anytime we play literally anything else, Matt and Dallas just wipe the floor with me. I'm there as literally like a bug on the coattail that gets stepped on and ripped off of their back, and then I'm just laying on the battlefield dead. But in this, I'm good. But we play this dungeon, and it takes us 4.5 hours. And there are all sorts of crazy mechanics. One of the things is there are moats in this game. There's two things in this game. There's either orbs or there's moats in whatever you're doing. You have to collect moats, and they're light or dark. And they don't really tell you how to get light moats to do the light wells or dark moats to do the dark wells. You just have to be killing people while standing in the shadows, of a pillar or of a tree or something like that. If you're standing in the shadow and you kill it, then it drops dark motes. If you're standing in the light and you kill it, then it drops light motes, and then all these things. But then we get to this final boss battle, and it's just like wave after wave of enemy and big bosses shooting at us while we had to get these motes and cleanse these wells. And then we get to this plane of this guy who warps us backwards, but if you get too far away from him, then everyone dies. And it was just it was probably a good 2.5 hours of just running that final boss battle. And there were multiple times when we got to a sliver of his health down, a sliver of his health left, and then we died for some reason. But jeezum crips, we beat that thing, and it felt so fucking good, Holden. It felt Dark Souls boss level good when you struggle on a boss for hours and you finally beat it, and you're just like, ah! That's how it felt after this. It felt good to complete it. And I can't wait to do more prophecy or more dungeons in the future, because there are so many more as part of other planets that are staying, or hopefully new ones. But maybe just space them out. We can't do them too often, because 4.5 hours of stressful battles like that every week, it's gonna knock me on my patootie. Holden, why the fuck are you playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order again?
Yeah, so I went through my list of PlayStation 4 games, all my PlayStation 4 games. I'm what do I want to play on PS4 before PS5 comes out? And I played Ratchet and Clank. I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I played Hollow Knight because that was on PS Plus. And then I played Apex Legends with Alex for his Extra Life stream. And just going through this list pretty quick. I don't really have much to say about each of the games. Apex Legends, the new map is really cool. I like the new map a lot. It has a very unique aesthetic to it. Apparently, it was supposed to be used for Titanfall 3. So it was concept for Titanfall 3.
We have a story about that later.
Oh, that's right. Hollow Knight, it's Hollow Knight on PS4. It's a great game. Everyone should play that game.
Hollow Knight fucking slaps. That was your game of the year 2 years ago.
It was, yeah.
That beat God of War for you. That game was better than God of War 2018 in your mind.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Here's the thing. So we were I don't think we hated it, but we were very lukewarm on that game when it came out.
I was mucho disappointed in that game, as they say.
And I started playing that game, and just like I felt the first time I played it, wow, what a great 2 hours. And then after that, I'm like, the combat doesn't feel right.
You started it from the beginning?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It does the combat just does not feel right in that game still, and I had heard they'd fixed it, which is part of the reason why I went to go back and play it. Yeah. And just no. I'm good. I'm excited for the next one, see what they're gonna do with that. Maybe they'll, make it even better, who knows?
Could your guy finally grab ropes?
Yeah, maybe you finally grab ropes. And then Ratchet and Clank, which playing that game, oh man, I cannot wait for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And that's really the only thing I have to say about Ratchet and Clank is, oh man, I can't wait for the next one. That's it. That's my playtime this week.
That's pretty dope, Holden. Before we talk about everything else in the world, including our impressions on other people's impressions of new consoles, I'd like to tell you about Affable Idiots. That's right. It's the brand under which we fall with our sister podcast, AAWY, and some new types of content. Eyebrows. Sexy eyebrows going. Coming very soon. We would love to know that you support us and you want more stuff from us. How can you show us that love and support? You can go to youtube.com and you can search. That's right, you have to search like a poor person. Respawn, aim, fire. You know why you have to search like a poor person? Because you guys didn't subscribe enough to let us get youtube.com/respawn, aim, fire. So if you do that and you subscribe to all of our channels, including AAWI and Affable Idiots, we'll give you good things. You can also go to our podcast services, give us a like or a 5-star, and leave us a little comment, because that's our love language, is good old sexy words. And you can also go to patreon.com/respawn-aim-fire if you want to give us monetary value in exchange for other types of goods, like the ability to influence what we play with our barf game. You get dope fucking wallpapers, and I'm just going to say, I've been on a roll the last 6 months with these wallpapers. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I do like to fuck myself. I don't know where that came from. But they're good. They're good wallpapers. And there are 2 specific other things that I wanted to kind of bring up right now in this little Affable Idiots plug. If you would like to work with us around next-gen consoles.
If you'd like to work with us and hear more masturbation conversations from Chad.
If you also want your listener base to be subjected to me fucking myself. No, if you are getting a new console at launch, whether it be PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, or Xbox Series S, and you are interested in maybe doing some review discussions around the console hardware, or some review discussions around some of the launch games on those systems, the launch games on that one system, please DM us on Twitter at @RespawnAimFire. We would love to kind of make some content around that in the next couple weeks with some people who also love it, who are also our friends.
So I'm like, no, Xbox has launch games. Like, it's really more of like games that happen to be launching on the same day as Xbox.
Yeah, games that are playable on the Xbox when it launches.
Yeah.
Let's move on, Holden. Let's jump into our quest log. Find out what the internet is saying we need to talk about this week in concerns for gaming. Those words don't make sense together, but you know exactly what the fuck I mean, because we all speak English together as a race of humans. Microsoft quest log. Xbox Series S usable storage is reportedly 364 gigabytes, says Merdad Kayat at DualShockers. It's been speculated for a bit, ever since it posted on Reddit, and now all the reviews are confirming it. Yes, you only have 364 gigabytes of storage space. Again, this is something that I've been talking about as like a concern for the Series S since it was basically announced. I was like, oh, that 500 gig hard drive, it's small. But my caveat to that was, it doesn't matter, because you can stream games with Game Pass, and you don't need to download them to the hard drive. Flash forward to today, when we know that you cannot stream games with Game Pass on a console, only to an Android phone or to a PC, which is... actually, I think it's just Android right now. It's not even on computers. Maybe it is. I don't know. Point is, your storage is kind of fucked on Series S right now, unless you want to shell out almost the price of the console again for that 1 terabyte expansion drive.
And I think it was Ryan McCaffrey and IGN was making the point that once you're putting $220 down one of those expandable cards, you should have just bought a Series X, because you're already spending more money than a Series X, and you're going to get a little bit less hard drive space than you would have before, but you're going to get the 4K. You're going to get, it's just going to be a more robust console overall.
And then we have,
so it's not great.
Then we have Steven Dutzman slide in here in the chat from Engage Family Gaming saying, or you can delete your games. Steven Dutzman,
so,
Call of Duty plus Destiny already equals full hard drive. You can't delete those games. You play those games all the time because you're a gamer, and that's what true gamers play, and that's it.
So
no, I mean,
I was going to segue into what Steven was saying as well, because I've been dealing with the a PS4 base, not slim, regular PS4 with 500 gigs of storage, which ends up being about 400 gigabytes of space. So basically, the Series S is like 1 game less than what I had.
Yeah,
and it's manageable. You can do it, but like Steven says, it's just kind of deleting games every once in a while. But the real problem is just is the Call of Duties and the Destinies, games like that. You kind of just have to pick one of those games and keep them and go back and forth and download them. And it's frustrating, but it's doable for the kind of person who's going to get this box they might not be, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to assume for the person, but like they might not be the most hardcore gamer getting one of these things at launch. And I kind of wonder, like, in the future, are we going to see a 2 terabyte Series X and then a 1 terabyte Series S show up? I kind of feel like they'll have to do that at some point. Yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I'll say I've been in a similar situation. It's doable. If you get a Series S, I don't think you'll get a bad console. You just need to know you're going to be juggling. You're going to be juggling. That's going to be part of the Series X experience.
What I think is interesting, you kind of pointed this out, and Steven is saying this too, like the S isn't for us. It's not for like the really dedicated hardcore gamer necessarily. Like it's more aimed at like a family-friendly, affordable option. But those are also the kind of people who are going to be more ignorant to the storage space concern. Like, they're going to pick up, oh, this is an Xbox, it's cheaper, 500 gigabytes, I don't know, how big is a game, 10? And then they're going to get home, and their kid's like, Mom, can I play Call of Duty? Mom, can I play Assassin's Creed? And Assassin's Creed games now are huge. They have tons of DLC, and they just get increase more in file size. And those are, like, the casual gamers, like, those are the things that they play. Are those enormous open world games or online battle royale, massively multiplayer games, and those things are going to be a shock, I think, to a lot of people who didn't realize that going in.
The silver lining is that, and this is also from Ryan McCaffrey at IGN, who's tested both of the units very extensively in the reviews. The Series S versions of games are smaller than what you would get on a Series X at the very least. It's not a huge difference, but it's like a little bit of a,
because they don't have to download
room.
The 4K textures.
Exactly. So I think Gears 5 was like 70 plus gigabytes on a Series X, but it was 50 on a Series S, which makes it more manageable, but it's still not making it so you can download like twice as many games because of the extra space. Like, it's not going to work out quite that well, but you'll at least get some more indie games you can throw on there now.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Medium, which was literally the one game I was excited to play on my Series X. It has been delayed from December until January 2021. And the official title of this article says, The Medium delayed to January 2021 to not contend with Cyberpunk 2077. Says Logan Moore at DualShockers. They didn't specifically mention Cyberpunk 2077, but they did say other games on the market and COVID-19 were both cited as reasons for the delay. It is now coming out January 28th. For anyone who doesn't remember the Medium, this is the game where you can kind of flip back and forth between the regular world and like this devil, satanic, other crazy demon world as well. And it looked kind of fun and dope. And it was, as I mentioned, literally the one game I was excited to play on Xbox Series X. Who's the biatch now?
I mean, I think it was probably smart of them to move outside of the Cyberpunk 2077 window.
Yeah.
Because that whole window is going to be dominated by Cyberpunk.
But you know what? I guarantee you they moved out of one window and right into another. Because January 28th is going to be the new release date of Cyberpunk 2077. And we find out next week, I'm sure.
I did have that thought of like Cyberpunk delays again, and then they keep doing it, and all these other games keep saying like, "Oh, we're going to delay as well and push back," and then like no games come out in the beginning of 2021 because they're all avoiding Cyberpunk. I think they made a good move, the Medium, the developers of the Medium, but it definitely hurts Microsoft because there is now officially nothing in 2020 that is exclusive to play on Series X that hasn't already been on Xbox One before. So, bummer.
We have another update about Elder Scrolls and Bethesda information. I know that we said that we were probably done reporting about this kind of information, but we just couldn't. This was too good. It was too good not to report on.
Well, it's also not about like the acquisition. It's just about the games.
I mean, there's a little tiny bit about it in here, but we'll talk about more cool stuff too. Todd Howard reveals new Starfield details. Elder Scrolls 6 Day 1 Game Pass Edition confirmed, says Leanna Ruppert. There are two pieces, Ruppert. At Game Informer. People have been champing at the bit for Starfield info. That's right, it's champing at the bit. Chomping at the butt, but champing at the bit. Starfield and ES6, that's Elder Scrolls 6 for you lay people. These details came from an interview with GameIndustry.biz. Starfield will not have multiplayer. Not something that I think we knew ahead of time. And another kind of interesting thing about it is that they will have worlds within Starfield that are purposeful and placed and generated, but then they will have procedurally generated assets on that world to kind of breathe life into it and make it feel more lived in a way that's a little bit easier to do mechanically. If you are unfamiliar, procedural generation is when you just let the computer make up shit instead of telling it, I want a green alien that's 4 foot tall, blah, 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 on this planet. It just says, we're going to use math and algorithms to decide what's going to be on this planet for you randomly. Famously, No Man's Sky, the entire game is procedurally generated. Look how that turned out. It's good now, says someone. Starfield is also... You are a someone. Yes, you are.
I am
Starfield is also apparently, quote, so much larger than Fallout 76, which was also already 4 times bigger than Skyrim. So it's going to be huge. But I wonder how much of that space in it is you just like traveling between planets, in which case it's 5 light years between these planets, and we didn't even have one single light year in Skyrim because you just walked across a mountain. But who knows? And then finally, as confirmed earlier in the year, Bethesda's game engine is getting a major overhaul, and I put out a really funny tweet saying they like touted this in a press release last week that said there are now 5 times more people working on Bethesda's game engine than there were previously. And I was like, what? Did they go from like one person's side hustle to now 2.5 full-time employees? Get it? Because their games are often janky. That's the joke. That's the joke I made, Holden. How does this tickle your pickle?
I'm just excited to see Starfield at this point. I think I'm more excited for that than Elder Scrolls 6. I played Skyrim for a little bit on Switch and just it was good, but it didn't like hit me necessarily really hard. Fallout's my prefer. I prefer Fallout over Elder Scrolls, but I'm interested to see what they do with Starfield. I'm just more curious now how long we're gonna have to wait to hear about this. There was another story this week that was like really small and like super speculative, so I didn't include it. But it was that there was a T-shirt that one of the developers was wearing in a live stream of something, and like people are saying, "Oh, that connects to these rumors that came out a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, or something like that." And part of those rumors was the game is coming in 2021, which is.
That's what I say to that. I say, like chimpanzees do.
Well, their norm, Bethesda's norm is announcing a game within a few months of it releasing.
Is that a norm, or is that what they were most famously known for Fallout 4?
I thought they did that regularly before as well.
I thought Fallout 4 was like an anomaly, and people were like, oh my god, what a brilliant marketing campaign. It's 4 months long, everyone knows it's coming out right away, and it was like some brand new thing they had never done before for Fallout 4.
Oh, that could be the case. I know they did 76 as well.
Doom Eternal had, I think, at least a year lead-up time to it.
Oh, I'm talking about Bethesda Softworks, like those developers specifically, like that specific studio. Yeah, because like Wolfenstein and Prey and all the other games don't adhere to that. Dishonored, So I'm curious if they will do like next year they announce it and then it does come out next year. I think it's possible. I think it's also possible considering the Microsoft acquisition and kind of what's happening with that. That will apparently be confirmed like around June of next year. So they probably don't want to say like what that launch plan looks like until that acquisition is complete and they're able to figure things out. So that acquisition could push it back. Because of what they did figure out they want to do. So it might not be that far away. I mean, it was like, 2018 when they announced Starfield? I don't want to look it up. But I'm thinking it was like 2018. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was, did they announce it when they announced Elder Scrolls 6? Was that the first time that we'd ever heard of it?
E3.
Yeah, so that was 2 years ago.
I'm looking at it. I want to know for sure.
Because that's when people saw the title screen for Elder Scrolls 6, and it was just like some font over some grass, and people were like, "Wow!" And we're like, "You fucking knew they were working on it. Why is that exciting?" I guess confirmation. I get it. Confirmation that your favorite thing is coming sometime, and you don't have to be in limbo. But then there was also the Metroid Prime 4 screen that also everyone went, "Ah!" It's like, dudes, that game's literally not even coming out the way that they thought it was. It's a different game now. What are you looking up again? I forgot. I've already forgotten.
2018. Yeah, it was 2018 they announced it.
Oh, yeah. I said it confidently. I'm surprised you didn't just believe me. Acting. Holden, before we move on from Xbox's quest log, I would love to just kind of, we don't have a specific review we're going to cite because we just got some impressions from a bunch of different places. But I would love to have kind of a chat real quick about the Xbox Series X and the S reviews. Now that the embargo is lifted, people are able to talk about the consoles and their experiences with them, not just from this is what it looks like on the outside, but this is how it runs, this is how it plays, these are our impressions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think before we get into it, I want to actually call out Brent on this one because Brent, I think he said something on Twitter, and I think he's right, which is that console reviews are kind of bullshit. They just kind of are, because you judge a console based on the life cycle of the console and kind of how things evolve over time and that kind of stuff. But in this case, this is the first time we're really getting hands-on impressions with these boxes, so it's kind of like, hearing about someone's impression at E3 kind of more than anything.
Yeah.
But that's true for PS5 as well, which we'll talk about later on. So in terms of the Series X, Series S, it sounds like they're good consoles. And I kind of feel like that's the only thing you really say about it. Like, there's not really anything that's like stand out necessarily. Even things like the quick resume feature is not available for all games quite yet. It's not quite clear like when a game leaves memory so that you can go back and quick resume it. Like, it sounds like it's a cool feature, but it's a little rough around the edges for those kind of few reasons.
Yeah, of all the things that I've listened to, that's the feature that's talked about most, and people are really high on, like, the fact that you can literally leave a game and jump into another one within like 8 seconds.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really cool to be able to think about that.
It also seems like the most next gen thing about the new Xboxes.
Right.
I've
listened to a couple of things, and what I was listening to, I think, Easy Allies and their takes on it, and one of them described it as it's basically like just giving you a better PC. Like, you've been gaming on an Xbox One this whole time, and they just like, oh, cool. Well, here's a better version of that. Here's a new PC. Like, literally, the UI is the same across both of them. The controller does all the same thing with the exception of a new button and a slightly different form factor. But you get, oh, cool, quick resume, which you could maybe like that. Could be small enough that it's a feature you might find with a new type of SSD or a memory card or whatever. Memory card.
Yeah.
What year is it? Graphics card is what I meant to say. So yeah, that's kind of the discussion that I've kind of been seeing. But people are loving the form factor. They're saying that it fits in really well. It looks nice in their entertainment systems. It runs super silently. That's what I was really kind of hoping. Like, I know that the PlayStation 5 is huge, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and has heat sinks and things like that. But I was hoping that the Series X didn't also just get too hot and you could hear the fan. But no, from what I hear is Xbox X is like the quietest of all the next gen consoles, which is awesome. But yeah, in general, people are liking it. But you're right. It's not exciting because it's just better at everything, but nothing new and no new next gen type experience. Nothing's really noteworthy enough. Yeah,
and I think what's even funnier, what's funny to me is that you'll see all these reviews that say like, "Oh, it's kind of boring." And Phil Spencer retweeted that, which I thought was like really funny because it's like, I guess that was kind of the goal in a lot of ways, was
right,
just to kind of have like a, not the super exciting like launch, but yeah, I don't know, it was interesting to me. Yeah, and I think it's kind of all there is to say about Series X. Like, if you get one, I think you're gonna have a great time with it, playing the games you clearly already like because you're already playing them on your Xbox One.
Right,
you're gonna have a great time with it. But I think I know this is your hosting, but I think it's a good segue into the PS5, which has kind of felt like the opposite.
I want to ask one last question here.
Yeah.
100% on. Like, don't be me. Don't just, like, be a character for a laugh. Do you think that there is a significant or even, like, statistically relevant number of people who are playing on PlayStation right now and who see an Xbox Series X and say, ooh, I'm switching to Xbox next generation? Do you think that it is alluring enough to pull people away from PlayStation to convert them into Xbox rather than Sony ponies?
Once there are games that make you go, ooh, I want to play that game and I can't play it on PlayStation, then we'll see that happen. Yeah. I'm open to that myself. But, like, no, there's nothing right now that I think that would make you go, ooh, I can't wait to switch to Xbox and play games that I and be unable to play games I really enjoy my PlayStation right now. I don't think that there's. I'd be shocked if there's anyone like that. I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, me too. And I think you're right. Let's use that to kind of transition into starting our Sony Quest log by doing the same about PS5, getting impressions, seeing what people are chatting about. Before we do that, real quick pause. Dallas, I'm going to pose this question to you. You asked us, are you guys going to talk about Bofa tonight? Is that a soup? Is that a type of soup? What are you referencing?
It does sound like a soup.
So let us know in the chat. We might talk about it. I don't know. I'm not really a soup person. But hold on. PS5. People have hands-on on the controllers. They have hands-on the console. They're allowed to tell you about a lot of things about the console, with the exception of a couple of things. Like we still, there are embargoes around like the media apps on the console. So like we are like 90% we're able to learn about the console now, even though it comes out on Thursday. Do we have the same kind of feelings about PS5 that we've kind of heard or that we feel?
I am so fucking hyped because this sounds like a real next gen jump. I'm so excited. Just hearing about the DualSense.
That is number one on my list. All these people freaking about the fucking DualSense makes me so excited. And that was Xbox's big claim in actually the last 2 generations. They're like, we have the superior controller. And then this generation, DualShock 4 was great, but Xbox was like, yeah, but we've got the triggers that rumble. And now DualSense has just completely taken it to a completely different level.
And to bring it into Xbox for a second, going back and doing, looking back at the Xbox One reveal for the retrospective, one of the things they said on stage at Xbox One's reveal was an iterative controller update. We didn't want to rock the boat too much. And they said the same thing this time around. And Sony's now like, okay, fine, you're not going to do anything with your controller. Like, we're going to just run laps around you. And Xbox is, I feel like based on the feedback, we haven't used it, to be clear, we have not used it, but based on the feedback, you've held it, yeah.
When we were playing the Prophecy Dungeon, during the loading screens, I would pretend I was playing with my PS5 DualSense, and then when we were actually playing the game, I would pick up my DualShock.
Based on everything I've heard, it feels like Microsoft has to release a new controller with this kind of functionality, because I think they could. They could release a new controller with this kind of functionality and keep the Xbox Series X box exactly the same. Yeah. I kind of feel like they have to.
I think so, because
if we were talking. Go ahead.
I think you're right, because not only are people, like consumers and reviewers, like this, all people are talking about is that. Everything else is a side story, but DualSense is the main thing everyone's freaking out about. Not only are they so excited about it, but game developers are fucking ecstatic about it. I don't know how many countless stories we've read over the last 6 months about how developers like, I'm so pumped for DualSense and how I can use it in my game because I can make you feel the weapon or where you're getting shot from. You know where that is. You can feel that in the game. And so we'll see a little bit later that like there are actually I think this is in here. Yeah, there are so many third-party developers that are on board with this in a way that they never were before. Like, nobody used the fucking light bar the way that Sony thought people would. Nobody used the touchpad the way Sony thought people would. But this feels like it's going to be a feature that everyone's excited to use. And quite frankly, it is what is going to keep me gaming on PlayStation. Like, I've already trophies. This is a little bit of a joke, but also real life. Sony's my third-party machine because it contributes to my platinum trophies and all that kind of stuff. So I play third-party games on PlayStation. But I cannot imagine having both consoles, and I have the option to play it on Xbox One X or Series X. God, that's such a stupid name. Xbox Series X. And let's take Valhalla. No, that's not a good one because let's play Resident Evil Village because we know that we're going to talk about this later. I could play Resident Evil Village on the Series X and have a wonderful time with it. But then I also know I have a PlayStation 5, and I could play Resident Evil Village on PS5 with haptics. That's going to be a huge game. Like, there is no question that's going to be my preferred choice in every single game. And if more people are excited about it, everyone's going to want to play on PS5. So they have to catch up. They have to integrate haptics.
Yeah. And it's specifically because of how... I have not heard a single person say anything else besides, this is fucking amazing. There's been nothing else said. Nothing else said. And beyond even everything we just talked about, I feel like the whole concern of, like, is it going to get the adoption of the light bar? Like, the light bar didn't get adoption, or the touchpad, like you were kind of talking about there. This is based off of Rumble, which developers already utilize.
Yeah,
so
and
really
they've been looking for new,
like,
interesting ways to utilize forever.
Yeah, so it's a natural extension as opposed to this radically different thing. It just happens to have this radically new result on gameplay. So I feel like this is, yeah, that alone super exciting. The other stuff, super exciting too, with the PS5, like booting up is super fucking fast. Load times are really fast. That stuff sounds great. There was some comparisons of the Xbox Series X actually loading faster than the PS5, which I found really interesting. I don't know if you were surprised as I was, but I was very surprised.
I was surprised, and I think a lot of it, I actually, there were some places that said, hey, these load times are much faster than PlayStation 5's load times, with a caveat that, like, we were loading from quick resume rather than starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But it wasn't 100% that way across the board. But yeah, I was surprised to hear that. But all in all, I also don't remember seeing any games that were actually optimized for next gen yet. So I don't know if whenever we get the patch for all of these games, whether that's going to flip or not. But no, I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, I was supposed to see that. I think it has something to do with the CPU, and just that it's a faster CPU on Xbox. And even though the SSD can load it in faster, the CPU still has to process that information. So that could be related. But it's like, it's not concerning to me at all, because it's still really, really fast. Yeah, with the load times.
And I also, thinking back on games that have pitched load times as like a feature, almost all the times when they say PS5 no load times, Xbox Series very like much reduced load times, and I think what they're referring to is like once the game's loaded in and you're in it, there are no load times on PS5, and it's a little slower on Series X. But actually loading and launching the game happens quicker on Series X, which was a little surprising.
A little surprising. But then again, when you look at an example of, not that I'm going to play Miles Morales, but just use it as an example, you go to Miles Morales and you, from booting up the console, from completely powered off, not rest mode, completely powered off, you're in the game playing in well under a minute.
Yeah,
that is such a huge leap. That's so exciting.
No pun intended. Get it? Do you get it? Miles Morales leaps from rooftops and swings on webs. Huge leap.
Oh. All right. I get it. I get it now. It's... What's funny to me with these reviews, and I'm going to call it IGN here, and I want to be very clear. I know they're two separate reviewers. But there is still one editor who challenges those reviews. Like, all right, little tangent. So Dan Stapleton, who is one of the editors at IGN, I've heard him say this, which is that when he's being the editor for a review, he'll say, hey, I read your review, so-and-so, and you gave it an 8, but nothing about the review really said it was great. Are you sure that you didn't mean it was a good and at a 7? And this is the kind of conversation that an editor will have with the person writing the review of the game or whatever. So it's really interesting to me that you have this, this console is really next gen. It's an 8 out of 10. And then the other console, it's kind of boring and does things exactly the same as before. Also 8 out of 10. How did that happen? Yeah. That seems so crazy to me.
For people who, just to fill in a little bit of context I think is missing, IGN rated both consoles as an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
The general review of the Series X said, yeah, it feels like an interstitial upgrade. It's cool with some nice quality of life things, but it's kind of like a boring, nothing really specific that's new. And then the PS5 one was like, it genuinely feels like next generation. The controller is amazing. Load times are great, blah, blah, blah. Also the same score we gave the Series X. And so it's like, how does that happen?
Yeah. I think it's
IGN is the only place I think I saw that had like something that extreme, but...
Yeah, it was really surprising to me. Don't know why that was the case, because this is the first time I think I've seen a review for a next-gen console that starts with, this is definitively next-gen. Like, going back and watching reviews for PS4 or Xbox One, you usually kind of hear like, hey, this is a really good start to what we hope is a great generation of gaming. And this is like, no, it's next-gen. I can tell this is next-gen right now, immediately, out of the gate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's hype. It's massive hype.
We will have our actual thoughts on the console itself and not thoughts on the console next week.
Thoughts on thoughts on thoughts.
Update before we go into the rest of the Sony Quest log. Dallas has responded. Bofa is apparently Bofa D's nuts. We got Holden. we got. It was basically a knock-knock joke for adults. I really kind of wished it was soup, to be honest. Moving on to the rest of our Sony Quest log. We have quite a few stories kind of within this that are all super little funny things. Not funny, but fun-y things. Insomniac confirms that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart will be a PS5 exclusive, says Kazuma Hashimoto at Silicon Era. This is as we started to see the trend of next-gen games also coming to previous gen on PlayStation. This was one of the ones where like, I don't know, man. Like, they showed that this was only capable due to the SSD. Is this also going to be PS4? So no, it's good to see that they are actually taking full advantage of that next gen.
Mm-hmm. More hype.
Mo hype. Gran Turismo 7 is rumored to launch on PS5 in the first half of 2021, says Ryan Meitzler at DualShockers. Apparently there's a French PS5 ad that shows it, and on-screen text, it says that it's coming in the first half of next year.
Which means it's not a rumor.
Yeah, it's not really a rumor. It is produced by PlayStation, I assume. But also, what a weird thing to put on an ad.
Yeah.
Like, why such a vague 6-month time frame on an ad? Like, why even mention it at all?
Yeah, very strange.
Days Gone. If you listen to the show and you know our lifelong friend Dan, famous Sony PlayStation pony boy, wonderful human being, this is a game that he believes is most criminally underplayed on the PS4. Days Gone PS5 features include 60 frames per second support, says Jenny Leda at Silicon Era, has dynamic 4K with 60 frames per second. I'm going to be 100% honest here, Holden. I might go back to Days Gone.
I can see myself doing the same thing.
I think this is exactly the kind of push that I needed. Mm-hmm. But here's most of the issues I had with Days Gone were technical issues. I mean, I did have some parts where I was like, all right, I'm kind of bored of doing this thing now, or I don't really connect with these characters all that much. But I think a huge turnoff for me was when I would disappear into the bottom of the world, or my bike would explode, and then I'd be riding a ghost bike. And I ran into so many bugs that I was more easily swayed by the other things because the bugs were there. I was ready to give up quicker. So I think with this, I might go back and pick back up Days Gone. Days Gone.
Sounds like a great barf game.
You know what? I don't know if it's a great barf game because if we do get invested, it's like a 60-hour experience, isn't it? And then what if we don't like it? And we don't realize it until the second to last week because that's how we are?
Let's do
Dallas, I will take you up on that Bofadis nut soup next time in Rhode Island.
.com. I'm going to look at Days Gone. 38 hours.
Got 38. I feel like when all the reviews came out, that was the biggest thing they all said. Is just like, this would have been a great 12-hour game. But then we realized 20 hours in, they were like, oh my God, this game goes on forever. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to dip my feet back into it as soon as I finish beating everything else in the world that's coming out on PlayStation. Resident Evil Village. We hinted at this earlier. Resident Evil Village PS5 will support 4K with ray tracing, says Zermena Khan at PlayStation Lifestyle. That's cool. However, other features include almost no load times, adaptive trigger and haptic support, and what I think is going to be the biggest selling point of this game is 3D audio. I'm going to shit in everyone's pants. Real quick before we talk about the last little note here, adaptive trigger. Have you seen like the actual internals of the DualSense and how the adaptive triggers work?
No, I haven't. I've seen like ideas of how it could work, but I haven't seen the actual.
So there have been a couple places that have done teardowns of it now, and so the trigger itself is normally in a DualShock 4 and most controllers. It is normally just a spring that depresses on a button. And just that spring bounces it back up. But with this, it's actually a gear. It's a cog on the adaptive trigger, and when you press it, the cogs spin a spiral thing on the inside. And so that spiral thing turns as you push it down, and it rotates the other way when it comes back up. And there's a motor attached to that spiral. And so as you push down, that motor can turn on to fight against you at different speeds or strengths and stuff like that. So that's how the adaptive triggers work on that thing.
Interesting.
What a cool little piece of engineering. You should look up photos of it if you can. It's pretty cool.
I've actually seen the schematic that shows exactly how that works, like in the video I saw, but not the actual internal of what it looks like. So
yeah, it's dope. It's dope.
It sounds very, very cool. Yeah.
I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited because Resident Evil Village will have ray tracing at 4K 30 frames per second or 1080 60 frames per second. And if you turn ray tracing off, you have the option for up to 120 frames per second if you have a TV that supports it. Speaking of TVs that support it, if you have a TV that is a 1440p, likely you don't, it's probably a monitor instead, PS5 won't support 1440p output, according to IGN Italy, says Merdad Kayat at DualShockers. This has now also been confirmed by PlayStation. PS5 only supports 1080p and 4K, according to Sony. This does not mean you can't use a 1440p monitor. It just means that it will be scaled from one of those two resolutions to match your 1440p.
Yeah.
This is contrasting with Xbox's consoles, which do natively output at 1440p as well. I don't think that's going to be too big of a deal for a lot of people.
No, it won't be a big deal at all. And this also means a game could still run at like for example, like Doom Eternal could run at 1800p, but then use that resolution to scale up to 4K with checkerboarding and that kind of stuff. So like,
yeah.
This is kind of, I don't know, it's not going to make a huge difference. You're not going to notice. Just know that if you have a 1440p monitor, you're not going to get anything higher than that, than 1080p technically. I think that's kind of the main takeaway.
Right.
Yeah.
As someone who right now is using a 1440p monitor when I'm used to a 5K monitor, it is disgusting. I've been using 4K TVs and Retina displays and 5K monitors for so long that now using this temporary 1440p monitor makes me want to pee in my own eyes. 3 more stories on our Sony Quest log. This one is PS5 lets you automatically turn subtitles on for all your games, says Matt T.M. Kim. That's so weird. I have always only ever seen him referred to as Matt Kim from IGN. Who the hell is Matt T.M. Kim? Is that a different person?
No, so it's the same. I think it's the same person, but he likes Pokemon. That's my.
Okay.
That's what I think it is.
You think it's just like a fun thing they did for Halloween, or everyone changes their name on Twitter? Maybe he's Matt T.M. Kim for Halloween.
Maybe, I don't know, but I noticed in the past few months, but I've never put it as Matt T.M. Kim. But I think that's maybe the first time I put it in as Matt T.M. Kim. He's been doing it for a little while.
All right. Maybe it's
weird.
Christopher
Yeah,
Adams.
it's weird.
Who knows?
Good. Well, good for him. Maybe it's for Christopher Adams. For those who don't know, that's my middle names.
Oh, yes. I said something similar to Christopher Adams for your middle names at the beginning of this podcast. I don't remember what they were, though. Custom settings let you change the certain preferences across all games. So if you've ever been to a game and every single one asks you, do you want to do performance? If you've done a PS4 Pro at least, do you want to be performance mode or resolution mode? Do you want to have regular controls, or do you want to go into the settings and change it to inverted? Do you want to have subtitles on or off? What difficulty do you want to play on? You can tell your PS5 these things once, and it will automatically tell all the games, so you don't have to make those choices every single time. That's so cool. Like a little tiny quality of life thing. That's dope.
Mm-hmm. And I think it especially works, too, now that you have a PS5 where some games will have ray tracing, some games will have 4K dynamics, some games will have... It kind of just helps you say, this is what I want, and you don't have to go fiddle with the settings every time you go into a game.
Right.
It kind of just simplifies that whole thing. It makes it much easier. Also, difficulty settings, that's just kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way Dallas can just say hardest difficulty every time and then figure out why he hates video games.
There's no option, though, to know if you want Bofi's nuts or just one of those nuts.
It's Bofa-D's nuts, not Bofi's nuts.
What,
Who is Bofi?
Either way,
and why are we taking Bofi's nuts?
I can't even say the options. It'd be nice if PS5 would just let me choose once. And
so
then
you need the subtitles turned on.
I need the subtitles. Off. Always off. I hate subtitles.
I know. But there are certain games when I'm playing through them where I'm like, oh, God, Holden should have turned subtitles. Like when we were playing through, like Bioshock, I think was one where it was like, you have to have for those audio logs, you have to have subtitles on.
Yeah, but it's like I'm already reading the environment. I don't need to be reading subtitles at the bottom of the screen. Like it's just terrible idea.
Side note, my family, I've recently learned now that I've been living back at home with them for the past 2 months, they are all subtitles while they watch TV kind of people. Like they have captions on 100% of the time on everything. And It's obnoxious because,
That's
like you said,
that's a boomer
I
thing.
can't pay
It's a
attention to
total
the
boomer thing.
visuals because my eyes are constantly drawn to the words at the bottom of the screen. Even if I want to just listen and ignore them, I can't.
Yeah, so my dad will do that because he's like, well, I don't want the TV to be too loud and like travel throughout the house, so he'll read the subtitles instead. And I'm like, but then at the same time, he doesn't like watching foreign films. I'm like, you read subtitles in English for English movies.
My brother's family, they do it because the kids being really loud. They have young kids, so obviously it's like we can't hear the TV over them. My parents do it because they put their chairs like 20,000 feet away from the TV, and then they're like, I can't hear it, so they turn on subtitles.
HomePod, they gotta get a HomePod and Apple TV.
Well, I just got him a whole Sonos surround set up today for my mom's birthday, and
very good.
We're gonna do that instead. Hopefully that works. Okay, moving on. PS5 won't support SSD expandable storage at launch, says Adam Bankhurst at IGN. For context, both systems, PS5 and Xbox Series X, have ways of expanding storage because hard drive space is limited. PS5's solution was you could buy any SSD that's compatible and put it in this new easily accessible slot to add to your storage. However, that slot is... They specified we have to make sure that the SSDs are fast enough to match PlayStation 5's speeds. We have to make sure it's compatible with our I/O structure. We have to make sure that it is like physically sized enough, small enough to be able to fit in there. And so they told us when they revealed, they're like, literally nothing matches these specifications yet. We would hope to have something by the end of the year that we can tell you is compatible, but we don't know. So their solution to keep people from just buying it and trying it is they've just turned off the functionality. Even if you've bought one that seems to fit and can go in your PlayStation, firmware-wise, they've disabled it until they can have an approved list of SSDs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan of this versus the proprietary, or do you like Xbox's like partnering with Seagate to make specific cards that are compatible with it?
Initially, so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but like initially I was saying I think Microsoft took the better approach here because they're going to at least have options at launch. And I still think that for having options at launch, it's good kind of doing it the way they did it. But in a perfect world where everything's available at launch, I think Sony did the better way of doing it. My big concern before seeing the console, before seeing the teardown was, but it's really inconvenient to like tell a consumer to take apart their PlayStation 5 to put an SSD in it, but it seems really easy to do because it's not really, you're just taking off one of the faceplates. You're not actually like digging into the console because that can be dangerous. Someone could be wearing a fleece sweater and next thing you know, there's a static discharge and your PS5 is totally fucked, but that doesn't seem like that would happen in any circumstance based on how they do it. You still be careful and don't wear fleece sweaters when working with the SSD though.
Just in general, don't wear fleece sweaters. Like, they're not comfy, they're not breathable. You take them off and immediately you become a lightning rod. I'm not going to want to shake your hand or have sex with you, and that's what really everyone cares about is whether or not I want to have sex with them. So don't wear fleece. In general, I think I do like the PlayStation's option more because it provides you options. Like, I was not a fan of the Memory Pro Stick Duo for PlayStation Portable. I was not a fan of, like, those, you have to buy the PlayStation Vita cards for the PlayStation Vita, and there's such a crazy markup on them. That being said, Xbox's Seagate partnership, it looks like a completely reasonable price for the terabyte that you get of that storage. But I do like having options. That drives competition. It drives prices down for consumers. I don't know. I will very likely, as soon as an option comes out, probably get it because I'm the kind of person that likes to keep a lot of games on my PlayStation, especially if as things get updated, like Avengers and Destiny, to take advantage of the PS5 SSD, that I'll want to make sure that I have all of them on there.
Yeah, and their price, I think there's one that is kind of within the correct spec, but Sony hasn't like approved it quite yet. We're just kind of waiting to hear if it is actually approved or not.
Yeah,
and it
there
was like 230.
One
it was like
from Western
230 for 1 terabyte. Yeah,
I think it was like 400
so it's not,
for 2 terabytes or something.
Yeah, so it's not that bad, but I think I would kind of go all out and get like whenever they're like decently priced, I would get like if I could get a 2 or 4 terabyte one, and just make sure I never have to buy one ever again. Because it adds on top of your storage as opposed to replacing your storage, which is also very nice, very convenient.
Very nice. Finally, our last one of our PlayStation Quest log is PlayStation 5 demo station shows console overheating, says Dennis Patrick at GameRanks. There's apparently a person on Twitter posting photos from a Best Buy kiosk where their Best Buy has an actual PS5 on display for you to try out. And the screen just says, the PS5 is overheated. Please turn it off and wait for the temperature to go down. And they were like, whoop, as if like it failed. There are a couple things to note that like often at these stores, these things are kept in locked, tiny, tight boxes to keep them from being stolen. So it's possible that it was just like suffocated to death. We don't have follow-up info from this random Twitterer.
I do want to share like my experience because I have
this is
made
what you do.
those.
You set up these demo stations.
Yeah, I have. Let me itch my foot. I've done this. I've made several of these demo stations, and without naming any company specifically, let me just tell you they're almost never engineered very well. There's usually something really messy about them, and I'll say again without naming any products, things that I have seen as demo devices in store versus the product that I've actually owned myself and have used at home. The demo version at the store is always a piece of trash garbage machine. So I would not look into this as a sign that the PS5 is going to start overheating. We will find that out, in a few months as kind of things start playing out. But this is not the sign that it's over, that there's a heating problem. Based on all indications in the reviews, it sounds like that's not an issue. Based on the fact there's liquid metal cooling, that's not the issue. And I think you hit it on the nail on the head. Like, it's probably in a plastic box with no ventilation because they didn't think about heat displacement, because the people who are making these or engineering these boxes are not computer engineers.
They just want something that's hard to break into. They don't want something that's also breathable for a console.
Yeah, they're not thinking about air ventilation.
This is a cautionary tale, though, for people like, hey, listen, when you're thinking about where to put this in your entertainment center, make sure you give it enough room to breathe. That's important for all consoles, for most electronics.
Yeah, for everything.
If you're one of those people, like my family was for a long time, who has like 5 different electronic devices and they're all just stacked and sandwiched on top of each other, like, don't do that. Give them their own shelf.
Also, it's just talking about how subtle this can be. When you're using, for example, your MacBook and you're laying it on your bed or on a pillow and the fans are going really hot right now, it's because even that pillow is blocking the ventilation to get the air out. Like, just to kind of go how like subtle and insignificant the placement can be before this becomes an issue.
Yep.
But if you're putting your entertainment center, if it's wide open, you're good. You're good, most likely. Yeah.
Moving on to our Nintendo Quest log, we have one story today that we've already hinted at and probably won't talk about too long. Pikmin 3 opening week physical sales were lower on Switch than Wii U, says Ryan Craddock at Nintendo Life. This is specifically about UK weekend sales. They were lower than the original Wii U's opening sales. They were down 18.5% compared to that. Mm-hmm. This excludes digital sales. I have 2 things to say about this. I have 3 things to say about this. 1, it's Pikmin. It's never been a big game. It's not going to sell well. 2, I have seen 0 marketing from Nintendo about this game, so that probably contributed to it as well. I have 4 things to say about this. 3, it is COVID, especially in the UK. Many of them are back in complete lockdown right now, so of course physical sales are going to be down. 5, I don't even know that this number, like physical sales, why are we still tracking that? Is that relevant nowadays? Digital is so, it's such 50-50. A huge part of it. It's a significant cut of game sales now. It's like, why are we even talking about physical sales opening weekend from now versus, I don't know, 2013, 2012 when Wii U launched and this game came out, and then physical sales were almost all of game sales at the time. So like, why are we comparing these numbers?
I think it's just a limitation of companies like NPD who can only have outlets to track via physical retail stores. They don't have connections with PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo to track the digital sales. I think the notable thing here is just that it's down physical from the Wii U physical, which would at least suggest that when your market share of your console is that much higher, you think that it easily would have gone past the physical sales for Wii U, and it didn't. And I think this is just a sign that Pikmin 4 probably not going to happen. I think this might have been the nail in the coffin for Pikmin. I think it's kind of, for me, the main takeaway. I agree with everything else you said, though. Like, COVID is a huge factor in this, of course.
Yeah, especially like this is the week that most of the UK went into lockdown again.
Yeah. So it's a shame. You don't like to see Nintendo franchises not do well, but it happens.
As a caveat, I know you mentioned NPD. NPD does get digital sales from select publishers. So, like, publishers who choose to disclose that. I think Sony is one of them. I think Microsoft is. Nintendo is not. Some third parties are, some third parties aren't. So, like, that is all its own ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to our last part of our quest log, the fetch quests. These shorter stories, not necessarily shorter, but ones that are less significant that we don't feel like we need to dwell on. Starting with Nintendo Switch sales reached 68.3 million units worldwide, says Sato at Siliconera.
They're doomed.
Sato. So cool.
They're done. That's
They're
it.
doomed. They're doomed. That's impressive, given that they've been out for 3.5 years. That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Marvel's Avengers reportedly resulted in a $63 million loss for Square Enix, says Collier Jennings at CBR. This is not something that Square Enix has come out and said. It is a prediction by an analyst. So that's something to keep in mind, which is surprising to me because Marvel's Avengers was September's biggest launch. Like, it was the number one selling game in September when it came out.
Could have been a lot of launch sales, then not much after that.
Or
it's possible.
I wonder if they had spent so much in development hoping to make money back with, like, microtransactions and things like that. Because, like, all of the characters are free, but new characters, if you want to unlock their season pass, unlock new costumes and things like that, then those cost $10 each. And then you can technically unlock those all with gameplay, or you can buy in-game currency to unlock it faster. I wonder if they were just, like, hoping to make more money off of that, and they didn't. I don't know. That's surprising me, though, because in my eyes, that game was actually a success.
Yeah.
And I'm all that matters, as we all know, because wearing fleece is not attractive to me.
Yeah. I think the Metacritic score for it wasn't really anything to write home about, and based on reporting, it's kind of gone down in its player base. So yeah, I'm curious what the future of this game is, because I didn't have we all kind of know where I landed on it. Like, I never really was thinking it was going to be a great game, but I still thought it was going to have an audience.
Yeah.
And I really hope that's not the case. I hope they can keep going with it.
No, I think it does. And I think everyone who plays it and everyone who made it recognizes that, like, oh yeah, the reason why no one's playing it right now is because they're done with the content. And as soon as they release a new character and new content, then yeah, we're all going to jump back in. It'll be fine. Control Ultimate Edition for PS5 and Xbox Series X/S is delayed to 2021, says Ben Bayless at DualShockers.
They spent all that time working on the cloud version of the game. They just had to push back the next gen version of it.
For all the that game was literally my game of the year last year. For all the amazing things about that game, its post-launch life has been such a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Among Us.
Speaking of the opposite of that,
exactly.
The opposite of that.
Post-launch life has been its only life. Among Us to add new map, account system, and more, says Jordan Alleman at IGN. There's also a new option coming to report toxic players. This is part of, they'd mentioned they're canceling Among Us 2, and instead of just funneling all those ideas into Among Us 1. So this is really cool to see. That game, still just as fun as ever to play.
It's great. It's awesome.
One of my favorite election memes was Orange was ejected. And it's just Donald Trump.
Just was going to say that, yeah. And it has a little hair and everything on him. Yeah, it's great. Yep. It's hilarious. It's a very good meme. Good meme.
Good meme, everybody. Good meme, everyone. Grand Theft Auto 5 has sold over 135 million units since launch, says Merdad Kayat at DualShockers. And it's going to sell even more when it comes to yet another PlayStation console.
Rockstar's doomed. They're done.
They're doomed.
They're over.
We tweeted a meme this week. I tweeted for us via the account. A meme about Grand Theft Auto 5 that says, PS2 had 3 great Grand Theft Auto games. Grand Theft Auto 5 had 3 PlayStation consoles. It's true. They're milking it. Respawn talks going beyond Apex Legends Battle Royale, says Armenicon at PlayStation Lifestyle. This is what Holden was alluding to earlier. There was an interview with them, and Titanfall 3 was apparently in development before Apex Legends was started or launched. And in fact, the new map that just launched for Apex was originally developed in concept from Titanfall 3, but the team just liked Apex so much that they decided to put all their work into that instead of Titanfall 3, which is pretty cool. And it shows. People love that game. The developers made a great game. They like it a lot. That being said, I do want a Titanfall 3. That campaign of 2 was so good.
I really would hate if they just left it with Apex Legends, because I like Apex Legends, but nothing to top that Titanfall 2 campaign. Not at all.
2 more stories. Godfall looks like it could be coming to Xbox Series X in 2021, says Logan Moore at DualShockers, I believe.
Oh, yeah, Logan Moore. Yeah, I just wrote Logan. No, it's just Wolverine from DualShockers.
Just Wolverine. Just the movie Logan. This is cool. I'm excited because Godfall is one of my most anticipated games for the PS5 launch. We thought it was going to be a PS5 exclusive, but it looks like it's only a 6-month timed exclusive at the least. I am excited because this gives, if it is a good game, a game for people to play on Series X next year, which is going to be great. And because it is Gearbox, and Gearbox is working on crossplay for Borderlands 3, I hope that they're looking at just integrating crossplay from the beginning with Godfall.
Yeah.
That would be cool. And then yesterday was N7 Day, which, as you all know, is November 7th. N7 was Mass Effect. That's the Normandy 7 N7 logo, all that fun shit. Yesterday was N7 Day, which is every single year when they do some kind of Mass Effect celebration, news, something like that. This comes from Casey Hudson at BioWare. There is one very big announcement that came from that, and that is that we are finally getting Mass Effect Legendary Edition coming spring 2021 with improved resolution and frame rates. It is going to be a PS4, Xbox One, and PC title, and it will be forwards compatible with next gen. Holden, you fucking love Mass Effect, even though you're a fake fan. What did this do to you?
Yeah, I can take that. I haven't beaten Mass Effect 3. That's what Chad means. I've never beaten Mass Effect 3, but Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games ever. So yeah, shame me all you want, you guys. I deserve it.
Shame.
Yeah, I'm really pumped for this. I got it on Xbox, and then like the backwards compatible versions of these games. Then kind of rumors started to pick up for this. So I'm like, no, I'm just gonna play this again when it has the fancy graphics. I can play it on PlayStation 5. Gonna be great. Gonna be awesome. Can't wait. Super pumped.
I'm happy for it. I really love the Mass Effect game. I played 2 and 3, and I did the little comic at the beginning of 2 instead of playing 1.
Oh, you missed so many great moments.
But I have the Platinum Trophy for number 2. Like I like these games a lot. I am a little bummed that it's just frame rate and resolution upgrades. Like it's not remaking, it's not rethinking some of the mechanics. It's literally just 4K not upscaling, but remastered with 4K graphics. I wonder if they're going to like maybe even swap out the character models. Maybe they take Mass Effect 3's Shepard and characters and insert those same models into Mass Effect 1 and 2. I hope they at least do that. Although it's EA,
that'd be
so
nice.
They're probably just thinking about what's the least amount of work we can do for the most amount of money.
This is to prove that making a next Mass Effect game is worth it. I think it's kind of ultimately what this is about.
And we got confirmation that there is a team starting to work on a next Mass Effect game, which is cool.
Yeah. What that means, we don't really know. What does it mean they're starting to work on it? Yeah. Before we go to game show, I have to poo really, really bad.
Okay.
I need to go. We'll be right back.
Okay. We'll be right back. We're going to go to a hold screen. Actually, no, you know what? Holden, you go poo. I'm going to talk to our listeners on chat right now.
Okay.
If you are in
right
chat
back.
right now. It looks like Dallas, you are very vocal. Tell me about... no, I'm not going to have you tell me about things because that's not going to be interesting. I'm abandoning this plan. We're going to a hold screen. Holden's back from peeing out his asshole, everybody. And you know what that means? It's time for Game On Game Show. The game on our gaming show, we play a game called Game On. The game show on our gaming show. Game. Holden, last week we did our PlayStation 4 retrospective, and we had an accompanying PlayStation-related like trivia game almost.
Yeah.
This week we did an Xbox retrospective, and I made a 5-question Xbox trivia type game as well called Xbox Guest Talks, where we guess what guests on Xbox Talks have talked. That subtitle will make more sense here as I explain.
Okay.
I found an article about a podcast from 2016. There's an episode of Podcast Unlocked that brought together the original Xbox creator, Seamus Blackley, Xbox 360 linchpin, Peter Moore, and current head of Xbox, Phil Spencer. And they all three just got together and talked about Xbox, developing it, cool behind-the-scenes stories. And from that article about the podcast from 2016, this was Podcast Unlocked from IGN with Ryan McCaffrey, I pulled some cool information that I didn't know about Xbox history, and I thought it was fun. So I've created a 5-question multiple-choice quiz for you, just to help you learn a couple of cool things about Xbox's history. Again, this is Xbox in general, not just the Xbox One, which the retrospective was about. Number 1.
Let's get with it.
Holden. Oh, so again, just to repeat, so now that it makes more sense, the game is called Xbox Guest Talks, where we guess what guests on Xbox Talks have talked.
It does make a little bit more sense.
Yes. So this interview with these 3 individuals, the very first question that I pulled that they revealed on there, the question is, why is the official Xbox color green? I have 3 choices for you.
Okay.
1, it's the color of envy, and they wanted the industry to envy the new experiences they could provide. 2, someone stole the designer's markers, and they only left the green one. 3, they'd prepared a red version and a blue version as well, but in focus testing, people kept confusing them with Nintendo and PlayStation.
I'm going to go with the last one. That one makes the most sense to me.
Fun story. Someone stole the designer's markers, and they only left the green one.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm like, Chad put that one in there to like have a funny one. That's
really the reason why it was great. So the
that's
original,
amazing. That's too funny.
Yeah, the designer, so he had a bunch of really fancy pens and stuff like that at his desk and markers, and someone stole all of them but left one color green that apparently they didn't want. He's like, oh fuck, I'll color this green real quick, and then people just liked it.
Very interesting. It's a lot to hinge the brand of the company on.
Question number 2.
Or what it is, someone from the future time traveled to the past, knew that green was going to be the good color, and took the red and
oh shit, that sounds like some time turner
markers.
shit going on right there.
Mm-hmm. Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Tenet. True story. I'm trying to figure out whether I can even tell this story. I'll tell you after we're off the show. I do trainings. There is a spot in the trainings where I say the word Tenet, and I do this while I say it just to see if anyone notices. No one's ever said anything, probably because they're all smarter than me and didn't go to a movie theater in the middle of COVID. But question number 2. Which game did Microsoft originally think would be the Xbox's breakout success? 1, it was always Halo Combat Evolved. 2, it was Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. 3, a game called Malice, which was a Gwen Stefani-fronted action platformer.
I do know that they thought... I'm pretty sure they thought Halo was... They liked it, but they weren't 100% thinking it was going to be the big game. Okay. Oddworld already had a reputation at the time.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Oddworld, but I feel like I'm going to eat my words on that as soon as I'm done answering the question, but that's my final response.
You don't think it was the Gwen Stefani game? No, it was Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. Yeah, as you mentioned, they weren't always high on Halo, or as high as everyone else seemed to be when it launched. And they thought Oddworld Munch's Odyssey was going to be their big breakout game.
Because it was already on PlayStation, I believe. Yeah, it was on PlayStation 1.
This was, I think, the 3rd in that series.
Yeah.
Question number 3. Jason Jones from Bungie was furious about Halo being on Xbox because he intended for it to instead launch on I
know this answer already. You don't even do it. It was supposed to be on Mac and PC, but Mac was the first place it was introduced.
That's exactly right. It was supposed to be a Mac game, which I think is really fascinating. That was the first platform, not PC, and then coming to Mac, but launching on Mac.
It was shown at Macworld, and like Steve Jobs is like, and we're showing off Halo, and I'm like, what the fuck? That's not at all like what I would have expected. Yeah,
little interesting piece of history. 2 questions left. Number 4, which SKU of Xbox consoles did Phil Spencer and other Microsoft executives hate most? Was it the Xbox 360 Arcade Edition, the Xbox One S All Digital Edition, or the original Xbox One?
Which Phil Spencer everyone hated the most.
Right. A lot of Microsoft executives, including Phil Spencer, which one did they internally hate the most?
I'm going to say no to the digital edition, because if they hated it, I don't think they would have released Series X digital only.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of working this out. The other two was the original Xbox,
Original
Xbox
One.
Original Xbox One, and then what was the other one?
The
the Arcade Edition for 360.
Arcade Edition.
I'm going to say that because I don't know exactly what it is they didn't like about it, but I'm going to go ahead and assume it was the Xbox 360 Arcade Edition, because it's really just designed to be inexpensive, but it kind of was held back by having an incredibly small hard drive. Like it was like 4 gigabytes or something ridiculous like that.
That is
so
correct.
I'm going to say it's the Arcade Edition.
Yeah, it was the Arcade Edition, and you're right. It had a 4 gigabyte hard drive, and it was kind of the Xbox Live Arcade was a thing for a long time, and that's where games like Braid launched, really smaller indie titles. So this was a console launched specifically with that audience in mind, and you're like, oh, you don't need any more than 4 gigabytes to have a bunch of really tiny indie games, right? And so yeah, they hated that thing. Interesting though that they are kind of it's not quite the same pitch, but that's kind of the pitch for Xbox Series S. It's like, oh yeah, it's smaller hard drive. You don't need it because the games are going to be smaller anyway. 1440. Anyway, last question.
Yeah. But to put that in perspective, though, like PS3 launched the following year with a 20 gigabyte hard drive, just to give people an idea of like how small hard drives were back then compared to now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's
the PS5,
times.
20 and 60 were the two configurations at launch. You could get a 20 gigabyte hard drive or 60.
Which is like, nowadays it's like saying you can have a third of a game or one whole game.
Yeah. Or half of Call of Duty.
Or half of Call of Duty.
Last question. Which original Xbox feature was not secretly contested? The Duke controller, the built-in hard drive, the green jewel on top of the console.
It was not secretly contested.
Right, so which one of these basically did no one have a problem with? The Duke controller, the built-in hard drive, or the green jewel on top of the console?
This one's tougher. I'm going to say, because they changed the Duke controller, but then they brought it back like later on as this like kind of cool legacy thing.
They brought it back like 2 years ago as like, throwback. When original Xbox games became backwards compatible, they brought back the Duke.
Which makes me think it's that one. Because I don't think they would have brought it back if they didn't like it at all and didn't at least know that there was some sort of nostalgia for it. So I'm going to say I'm really uncertain about this one, so I'm just throwing in the dark. I think it's that one. The Duke
controller. The correct
controller.
answer, no one had a problem with the green jewel on top of the console.
Interesting.
But the Duke controller, Seamus Blackley, the original Xbox creator, hated it so much that he even like secretly went to a bunch of people, like Japanese developers and things like that, got their feedback on it, and he had a huge spreadsheet just full of names of people that hated the controller as much as he did. And it was largely the Japan audience that convinced them to make a smaller controller as well. But he also really was a champion for the built-in hard drive. Apparently, there were a lot of executives at Microsoft who were like, we don't need a hard drive. That's going to be expensive to put in this console. Way back in 2002? 2001? Whenever the OG Xbox launched. So it was going to be really expensive, but he was so adamant about it. He's like, listen, if you put the hard drive into the console, I will shut up about the Duke controller. And then they did. And so it launched with the Duke controller and the built-in hard drive.
That's too funny. Compromise. Hashtag compromise.
That's right. And then eventually he got his way because they redesigned the controller. So
because everyone else hated it.
Yep. That thing was huge.
Yeah, it was massive.
In fact, I have one in the other room. I have my Duke controller still. It's fucking giant.
Very cool.
So that's it for Xbox Guest Talks, where we guess what guests on Xbox Talks have talked, and that's it for Game On Game Show. The Game On Our Gaming Show, we play a game called Game On, the gaming show on our game. And also, that's it for episode 186 of Respawn Aimfire, the official podcast of Christmas. You have some chores as listeners and lifelong friends. One of them is to go subscribe to us on all the places you need to subscribe. Podcasts, YouTube. We need that shit. Number 2, go to patreon.com/respawningfire. Download those cool-ass wallpapers. Ass wallpapers. Number 3, for barf for this month. We are doing, again, something a little bit differently. We're not playing necessarily a backlog game. You have voted as patrons that we are going to play Godfall and Demon Souls, and we're going to play them super in-depth and have a really big in-depth conversation about both games instead. And then finally, again, if you are getting in one of the new consoles at launch or both, and you are interested in making some content with us in the next couple of weeks, DM us on Twitter. There are a lot of you that already have responded with the GIF tweets that I tweeted yesterday, so that's fine. You're already included. But if you were not one of those people, let us know. And we're going to hopefully plan that in the next couple of days. Nope. Until next time.
And when we will have next-gen consoles.
We will. The next time you hear our voices ever again, we will have next-gen consoles. Next-gen consoles. Because Thursday is game night if you're a patron.
Mm-hmm.
Should we announce what we're playing? Since we kind of know.
We do know, yeah. So we'll be playing Rainbow Six Siege because it has some nice next-gen features, but it's also backwards compatible. So for all of us who have a PS5 or Xbox Series X, actually, does it do crossplay? I don't think it does crossplay.
I don't think it does crossplay, but it is cross-gen. So we can use
cross-gen, yeah. So if you have a PS5, you get to experience nice 120 frames per second if your display supports it. Look that up to find out if you do. And then everyone else can play it on PS4 if they haven't got an next-gen console yet. So it's going to work out nice. It's going to be beautiful.
Right,
Chat, it's going to be beautiful.
That means if you're getting a PS5 on launch day, make sure one of the first things you download is Rainbow Six Siege.
Yes, because it's huge. But downloads are apparently a lot faster on it, so it won't take you as long as it does on your PS4, depending on your internet connection, of course.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Now for our usual sign-off. You remember when Holden peed out his asshole?